Good evening and welcome to the Mount Airy Town Council Candidates Forum. I'm Teresa Bethune, Vice Chair of the Community Media Center Board of Directors. Due to COVID-19, tonight's forum is being held virtually and broadcast live on cable channels HD 1086 and Channel 19. It is also being streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and the Community Media Center website at carrollmediacenter.org. The Community Media Center has partnered with the Carroll County Times to provide this programming as a public service to the community. The Community Media Center does not endorse any political candidate or political organization. I will now turn the program over to our moderator for the evening, Mr. Bob Blubaugh, editor of the Carroll County Times.
Thank you, Teresa. As moderator for this evening, I will introduce each of the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following the forum introductions, I'll ask the first question. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes to answer that question. All candidates will answer the identical questions. There will be no debate. This is an informational forum. At the conclusion of the question period, before the end of the forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a summary statement. All responses will be timed, and the moderator will stop the candidate when 2 minute time has elapsed. The questions posed to tonight's candidates are a mixture of prepared, actually they're all prepared questions. We got quite a few questions from emailed to us from readers and from viewers of the Community Media Center. So we appreciate all the questions from everybody. So let's begin. We're going to start with Mr. Stephen Demoter.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming. Hello, I'm Stephen Demoter. And my wife and I have lived in Mount Airy for 27 years, and we've been blessed to raise our family here all these years. I am a retired scientist and a senior executive with the federal government. And over these many years, I've been very active in the community. Over the last 2 years, I've been serving on the town's Growth and Development Task Force. And so we implemented the 2020 Mount Airy Community Survey. And so as part of that, I got to analyze all of the survey results, and I prepared the survey report. And because of that, I have very good strategic insight into the vision that you have for Mount Airy. I also have a good understanding of your issues and your concerns. And so having done that, I thought to myself, well, if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to advance these issues, then you need to have a seat at the table. And so I'm running for town council because I now want to be your voice and see to it that your issues and concerns are addressed. So I look forward to our conversation this evening, and I hope to share more information about my leadership competencies, my guiding principles for how I will provide effective leadership for Mount Airy. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, we'll hear from Lynne Galetti.
I have to unmute, right?
Correct.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lynne Galetti. I want to represent you on town council, but first I'd like to say thank you to everyone at Carroll Media, the Carroll County Times for hosting this forum, and to thank my fellow candidates for volunteering and stepping up, and the citizens for taking the time to get informed and take time out of your life to come and listen to us. Listen, we all either grew up in Mount Airy or moved to Mount Airy because we wanted a good quality of life. Our small town provides that quality of life that we all want. Just recently, Mount Airy is listed as one of the top 10 safest towns in Maryland to live in. A little bit about me. I have spent the last 30 years raising my children in Mount Airy and volunteering in my children's schools, youth sports leagues, drama programs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and for our town. My family and I volunteer anytime we are needed around town. The last 3 years, I have been serving on the Streets and Roads Commission, and the last 2 years as the chairperson. I am on the board of MAMSA, the Mount Airy Main Street Association. I'm currently the president of the Linganore High School Drama Boosters and the JV head cheerleading coach at South Carroll High School. This town covers actually 4 counties, but 2 big ones. Over the years, I have worked with a variety of people from all types of backgrounds and all walks of life. I have worked on many committees, and I have learned a valuable lesson working with great volunteers. It takes teamwork to be successful in any endeavor. I feel very strongly that the town council must work together as a team. I look forward to talking to the wonderful people in our town, and I would like to be your voice. It's time for you to be heard in this town. I hope you will vote for me on May 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Heather A. Hobbs.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Hobbs. I'm so pleased to be here. I'm actually joining you all from Anderson, South Carolina, where I'm visiting Mount Airy, hometown resident who has done good and has come to Anderson and quite a few establishments here. John Doolittle, Linganore. He's a Linganore graduate, but it's really nice to see somebody from Mount Airy doing so well for themselves. I'm a lifelong resident of Mount Airy, Maryland, and I am running for town council because I love this town. And I think what's going to set me apart, as you all get to know me a little bit better, if you don't already know me, is that this is my heart work. And I'm not going to be a person that's going to talk to you about the projects that I want to have done or a tick mark of what needs to be accomplished in town. I'm going to talk to you about how much I love this town and how this is a calling for me and how I want to serve you because I was raised to do this and I was raised to do so. I felt this calling when I was a young girl, and I brought my children back here to raise them in Mount Airy, and that's what I want for everyone else. I want this town to be a place where your children want to come back to raise their children. I want to leave that legacy. So, I am a 21-year educator. I am very, very proud to be an educator right here. I lead a school here in town, and that has been my lifelong dream to serve as a principal in the town of Mount Airy. I've been involved in town commission since 2003. And I started that work on recycling and sanitation back in 2003, almost 20 years ago, to prepare me to run for council. And I've taken these almost 21 years to go through recycling and sanitation, the Rotary Club, Parks and Recreation and Ethics, so that I'm ready to serve you as council, because I think it takes time to get ready and to serve your town.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the questions. First, kind of general, what do you believe, and we'll start with Stephen, what do you believe to be Mount Airy's greatest opportunities and needs over the next 10 years, and what would you propose in that regard?
Well, thank you for the question. In terms of opportunities and needs, again, I'm gonna start as a foundation of the 2020 community survey. So based on the results of the 2020 community survey, we got a lot of insight from our town residents. And the survey is a follow-up to the 2007 survey. And what we found was a very consistent message over the last 12 years. In terms of positive attributes, this is certainly a very safe place to live. We have a good sense of safety, sense of security, quality of life. So I think everybody would agree we have a great town. But many things can be true at the same time. And I think there's a lot of frustration about some of the longstanding town issues that have not been addressed. And so things we're going to need to be working on would be thinking about what's going to happen in controlling growth. We're going to have to think about our critical infrastructure and how that supports the town moving forward. We need to take some decisive action on things like the Flatiron building and the bank building. We need to really focus in on our downtown visioning plan, because I think our vision for the town is we want a vibrant, thriving downtown district. We want it to be people-centered, people and places. We want to see new businesses and a walkable town. And so I think we need to start addressing these longstanding issues that we've been maybe kicking down the road for about the last 10 or 12 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Lynn next.
So I want to repeat that. The question was, what are the greatest opportunities and needs in the town, and what do we propose?
Yes, just going forward over the next 8 to 10 years, what do you see as the greatest opportunities and the greatest needs?
So one of the things that I feel very strongly about is one of the biggest assets we have in this town and anywhere is our youth. The youth are the future of our town. They're the future of what we are working for right now, and what we look at and what we do is going to affect them in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I want to reiterate something Heather said. I don't have a particular agenda. People always ask me, what's your agenda? What's your platform? Listen, I've seen so many agendas come and go over the last 30 years, and I see people coming with these great ideas, and things don't seem to get done. It seems to be politically cyclical, which is typical of government. And so I think we need to put our heads down and look at what are the opportunities we have. First of all, we have a great asset, youths. Why aren't we getting them involved? I have a 21-year-old on my Streets and Roads Commission. I think we need to get them more into what's happening. We have a vision plan. We have the town master plan. We've got the 2013. We're now working on the 2023. We're looking at all of everything, like Steve said, the infrastructure, the growth. There's going to be growth, but we have to be smart about it. We want to keep the small town, and people hate this word, but I love it. It's the small town charm. That's why we live here. We want to keep this our small town and keep it livable, keep it the great quality of life we have. So I think we need to look at these things. We need to be transparent. We need to be open with the public. And here's what's on these plans, and here's what could come up. And we want your input into how do you feel about these things? How do you feel about Center Street coming through? What's the history behind the Flatiron? We can't just jump in and say, we want to change this or do this. We need to look at what is the history, what's the logistics, what's the short and long-term plan we can set up so that when our children are here 20, 30 years from now, and it's affecting them, we've made some good choices on what we're doing in town.
Thank you. And Heather.
Thank you. So this is the greatest opportunity and needs in our town. I think that the first thing that we need to focus on is that I'm going to go with the needs, because I'm a problem solver, but I'm a listener. And so I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers to things. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that this should be completed, or that we should do this or we should do that, because it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is how I represent the people at the table. But I will say this, one thing that I'm very, very firm about that I do think is the area of need in our community is that we need to embrace some more diversity and inclusion in our community. As an educator in our community and dealing with the youth in our community, and watching over the past few years, some decisions made at council that have to do specifically with housing opportunities that could allow more diversity and inclusion in our community, I've been disappointed. And so that is one platform of my campaign that I will hold steadfast to. The rest of it, I want to hear from everybody else. When I talk about inclusion and diversity, that is my heart work. My big, big job in life is to prepare little people to become really good men and women, right? And I'm going to extend that into council. And I see a need for that in our town. I grew up here, and that is, I will tell you all right now, that is our greatest need. It's not a roof over the caboose. It's not rails to trails. It is not worrying about smart growth or dumb growth. It is our children and how they embrace our neighbors. And we need to focus on that as a community. As far as what I see as our greatest opportunity, I think that there's an opportunity to welcome some people onto council that have ideas that are not pet projects and that are willing to listen. And so I think that as we go through the evening and we talk more and more about what the future of Mount Airy is, I think, I don't think a project is a legacy. I don't think that anyone's going to remember me because I put up a plaque somewhere on Main Street, but are they going to remember me because I inspired others to leave behind me? That is the great opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start with Lynn this time. In December 2019, the town posted a request to gauge interest in the Flatiron building. There has been interest expressed in repurposing the building for arts or retail use. Are any of you willing to consider a repurpose proposal, or have you made up your mind on the demolition of the building?
So I have a couple things to say about the Flatiron building. I don't think you can make a decision to answer your question. No, I haven't said we should demolish it, we should repurpose it. There's a lot of history in that building. There's a lot of history in a lot of things in Mount Airy. And I've learned over the years with great volunteers, people will come in with great ideas, but you have to look at the background and you have to look at what the history is. So I'm very much, having been a former federal agent and accountant, very much into fiscal responsibility. I think we need to look at the cost. I think we need to look at what is that structurally sound? There's a lot of questions, Is it a structurally sound building? And I haven't gotten into a lot of details of it. I'm hoping on town council, a lot of things you're probably going to ask tonight, I'm going to be able to get better answers once I'm at that council table and can look into kind of the nitty gritty of things and really dive deep into issues like this. So if it's a thing that we can do and it can be repurposed as an arts building, that's a great idea. Why wouldn't we do that? I mean, we've been looking for a facility to have a community center for our youth for how many years? Our youth go to other towns now to do activities and have a community center. So there's a lot of things we can do in this town that are positive. And I think we need to be open to looking at doing anything like that we can do. So to answer your question, would I be willing to look at repurposing that building? Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. And now Heather.
Great, thank you so much. So the Flatiron Building, so I love that building. I grew up in that building. I grew up sitting underneath that specially made table that is made to fit that building and listening to wonderful men. They were all men back then. So another reason why I'm sitting here today as a strong woman that wants to serve her community. I sat there and listened to town code being written, and that building means probably more to me than most people in this town. What I also know is that building was bought to be torn down. It was never meant to be standing as it is. I also, so those are the historical pieces for me. So my lens is not always clear because my emotions kind of lead my work sometimes. And it's hard when you grow up in a place. But, and also knowing that it was bought to be torn down. I know that. I absolutely know that. I feel like it is a hallmark of our town. And I feel as though if we can repurpose it, then that would be and add a space where we celebrate the arts, because we are missing that in town. We celebrate sports and athletes in this town historically, and my children benefit that as well. My children are athletes. They have benefited greatly from the Mount Airy Bulldogs. But we need to honor children who are not athletes and who show themselves in a different way. Not just children, but adults also. And that's been missing for a really long time. So if it could be repurposed in some way as a community center, as Lynn said, that has been a dream of mine. I actually have a Facebook page that says Support a Community Center in Mount Airy, Maryland, that I started about 12 years ago. So that is a dream of mine. I think that we need a space to honor all talents. And if the Flatiron Building could be repurposed for that, I support it. And the facade is part of who we are. But I need to hear from everyone else too, because I haven't heard from a lot of people.
Thank you. And Stephen.
All right, well, thank you. I'm going to start off and frame this discussion, this conversation with two guiding principles that I'm going to employ as part of my leadership. The first one is I'm going to be guided what you, the residents, have said you want. And sometimes it really is almost as easy as just listening to what the people have said they want. The second thing is, and I've been advocating this for a while, I think we need to take a much more holistic, kind of a systems thinking approach and how we look at our decision-making, how we use our quantitative and qualitative information, all the various plans and studies, and then look at that holistically, because you can't just make a decision on one item in isolation. So having said that, I'm going to get grounded back to the surveys that we've done. And in 2020, we had a question about the Flatiron Building. And what you, the residents, said was, about 22% of you wanted to remove the building and put in a plaza. About 22% said you wanted to remove the building and put some sort of a monument in a park. And then about 24% of you said remove the building and replace it with a new structure. And so we already have feedback from our residents on what they want. We need to look at all the information holistically. And as another point in how I will go about my business, because of my background, I will look at every scrap of paper, every feasibility study, every cost estimate, every report. I'll circle back and get more feedback from the community, and then I'll make an independent-minded, informed decision. But I think the Flatiron Building is something we need to take decisive action on, and in the context of reinvigorating our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question stays with downtown. Downtown Mount Airy is always a popular topic. However, there hasn't been much movement on major improvements, such as the Flatiron Building, Center Street connection, better parking, and walkability. So for each of you, what are your views on downtown? How would you support improvements? And do you support the downtown master plan? And I'm sorry, we'll start with Heather this time.
Thank you. Just need a little bit of water. Absolutely. So the first thing I'm going to go to is absolutely yes to all those things. My family has owned businesses on Main Street since before the turn of the century, and I've seen those businesses have flourished, and those businesses have been destroyed. And my family's business on Center Street was destroyed because we did not push Center Street through. That is not me being thinking about that as an answer because of what happened to my family. It is a reality. Pushing Center Street through has been on the books on our master plan for as long as I can remember. And it is something that needs to happen for our town. So I would say that I absolutely support that. As far as the rest of downtown, I think that we need to figure out a way to support our small business owners. I have grown up, my grandfather was the barber right there on Center Street. And my uncle Ira Watkins owned People's Lumber, and then we owned People's Lumber, and then we owned Shops of Yesteryear. So my historical knowledge of what it takes to run a business on Main Street is deep. And what I can tell you is this, is that you need more walkability and you need more draw to downtown. The bank building, we must do something with that building, whether it gets torn down or we repurpose it or resell it, that has to happen. The citizens have been asking for that for a really long time. We need to take a stronger stance on blight at the council table. And we need to stand behind code and not give more time to businesses or landowners that allow blight to happen in our community, because that rejects other businesses from coming to our town. And we also need to think about the festivals and things like that. You know, once COVID is done, I mean, I'm ready to open up. You know, the governor says, and I'm well versed in CDC guidelines, it's time to open up. We need to bring people downtown. So we need to talk about how to make that happen too.
Thank you. Stephen?
All right, well, thank you. I think big picture, I support the downtown vision plan. And it's interesting, I was doing some research and I was looking into small town Main Street America, how to manage Main Street America, how to make improvements to downtown areas. And there's two things that struck me. And the guidance was, if all you do is talk about cars and traffic, you're going to get cars and traffic. If you focus on people and places, you're going to get people and places. So our downtown vision plan has a focus on people and places. And so the vision for downtown is to have a walkable downtown, good access sidewalks. We want a vibrant downtown. We want it to be a place where the people can gather. As Heather said, we want to have festivals and celebrations. That's the kind of vibrant vision we have for downtown. And so I support moving ahead with that vision plan. I support with opening up Center Street to Route 27, but I've heard some interesting ideas about how to still, again, the focus on people and places. Maybe we open up Center Street to Route 27 and it comes down, but we do not connect it to Main Street. We still get the people down, we still can open new businesses, we still have foot traffic that can go to downtown. But again, we're keeping traffic and cars away from this vision that we have for Main Street. The last thing is, maybe we're going to talk about infrastructure. The town's getting about 16 million in COVID relief money. And this is a great opportunity to leverage that money to make some improvements to the downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
Hi, thank you. That's a great question. And so I want to point out a couple of things first before I tell you what I think about the vision plan and the master plan. So we have made major advancements on the town level, getting Center Street through the current town council, past town councils. There's been a lot of movement that was made to get that through. And I think it was 2 years ago, if I'm not correct, I'll look that up. Town council passed a resolution to have Center Street through by, I think, 2023, and I'll check all my data and figures. So, and we have a staff that's phenomenal, and we got a state grant to help pay for that. So I think the master plan, the vision plan's a great idea, because I've seen master plans in the last 30 years, and I read them and I see what they say, and I see a lot of things not getting done or implemented. This time I'm finally seeing things get done, and it's getting done in a fiscally responsible way, and it's being thought out short-term, long-term. But we also have the Mount Airy Main Street Association. I don't want to forget about MAMSA. A lot of work has been done in partnership with the town to work with the businesses, to get our businesses involved, to attract new businesses, and to get the input from businesses to get that traffic down to Main Street, because you've got to support the businesses in order to have a place for people to go. So yes, I agree with and I'm not going to say opponents, my fellow candidates, because we're not opponents. We're all out here doing whatever's best for the town. So I feel like everything we can do to support those businesses, to continue to make it walkable. My family volunteers for every festival we have downtown, going all the way back to when my 26-year-old Anthony was a newborn baby, and we were sitting down there at the 100th anniversary of the town. So, right. So I think we need to continue the paths forward that the town has made, and continue progressing and moving forward with supporting the businesses, supporting downtown, and getting people out.
Great. Thank you. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. Do you think more police coverage is needed in Mount Airy? And we're back to starting with Stephen on this one.
All right, well, thank you for the question. Again, let me give a frame of reference here. My last position in the federal government, I was the chief safety officer for about a 600-person safety organization. So, safety is one of those things. Safety is personal. It's about somebody's mother or father or son or daughter. And so when we're talking safety, we're talking about our people. And so regarding the police, I've heard different pieces of information about what kind of coverage currently exists. I don't believe, based on what I've heard, we have, consistent 24-hour coverage. I do believe that we do need 24-hour coverage. I think our citizens deserve it. Safety is the first thing that your government should provide for you. And so I'm very supportive of that. And then in a bigger picture, I have an emergency preparedness and response background. So I'm very supportive of our fire department, our EMT services, and I'm a big supporter of the police department. I just want to focus on performance and outcomes. And one of those things is making sure that the citizens have 24-hour coverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn, you're next.
This is a great question for me, and I think it was probably written for me. So I have a lot of strong feelings about our police force. This conversation about whether to stick with the state police and have Mount Airy police is not a new conversation. This started 28 years ago after I moved here. So here we are, we've got our police force. Now, before they even started, and I went to town council meetings and I asked for all the data and all the accounting and all the information and all the numbers. And I went to our then potential, now current police chief and said, let me ask you a question. I'm looking at these numbers and they're going to fund this many police, this much equipment, this many vehicles. If we take the extra step to get the extra what we need, it's going to be cheaper in the long run, correct? And I was correct. I feel like we absolutely are allowed to have 24/7 coverage in this town to be safe. Like I said, it just came out today. Maryland is one of the top 10 safest cities in the state of Maryland to live in. And I attribute that to the fact that we have a safe town. Everybody wants a safe town. That's one of the reasons that people are attracted to come live here. I believe our police force has a lot to do with that. And I feel like our residents deserve to have 24/7 coverage. Not only that, I feel very strongly that we need to make sure we do what we need to do to retain our police force. We need to have competitive wages. We need to look at the possibility of maybe something like the federal government, which Steve and I are both familiar with. You get a step increase as you go along and you perform. If your performance is good, you step up. we should look at something like that for our police force, because we need to retain these guys. We have a good police force, and I think we need to keep them here. So I think they do need to be fully funded, and I think we need to have 24/7 coverage. And I think we need to make sure they have exactly what they need to effectively continue protecting our town like they are.
Thank you. And Heather?
Thanks so much. So I think that the first thing that I would need to know, and that I don't have it in front of me, is the data for have we been effective as a police department thus far since the implementation of the Mount Airy Police Department with the coverage that we have right now. I do know that it's very important. You have to balance. The big job of any town, or I always say that my big job as a principal is to keep people safe. Right, that's the number one thing. That's the number one thing that we should aspire to as leaders in our community. So I would need to know the data as far as what we have seen as far as arrests with the coverage that we have right now, because I do believe that we need to be fiscally responsible. And I know that what we have spent on our Mount Airy PD has exceeded what we originally thought that we were going to. And I would need to know, I think it's a balance, that you can never pay too much for safety, but you also have to look at data numbers. And, Steve he's so brilliant there. He's talking about 22% this and things like that. And I'm in awe of his mechanical mind and how he's like processing numbers, because I don't work that way. But in this instance, when it comes to money and it comes to taxpayers' money, with the Mount Airy PD, and this has been such a big ticket item for our town over the past few years, I would need to know some data about the coverage that we have gotten, and then how much the plus deltas of what we are paying and what we need, and then also as far as are we getting the most, do we need more, and is there more money to be spent to get more, and actually do we need it? So I need more information for that one.
Thank you. Okay, next. And we'll start with Lynn on this one. Do you pledge to resume good faith efforts to draft and pass an updated ethics ordinance that complies with state law?
Can you repeat that? So do I pledge to resume good faith efforts?
Sure. Do you pledge to resume good faith efforts to draft and pass an updated ethics ordinance that complies with state law?
Absolutely. We should comply with state and federal laws when it comes to anything with ethics and anything ethical, because I would have to look into this, because I don't understand why we wouldn't be up with the state. So yes, would I pledge to resume good faith effort to have our ethics in line with the state? Absolutely. Because if you don't have ethics at the basic government level, we got a problem. And everybody at every other level you go from, so we're at the basic level, town, then you go to county, then you go to state, then you go to federal. So everybody, as Steve can tell you, in the federal government, you have to have that ethics to be effective at what you do and to be honest. So yes, would I pledge to make sure we're in line with that? Absolutely.
Thank you. Heather?
So I've been a member of the Ethics Commission for the past several years. So this one speaks to my heart a little bit. And Mr. Swanson and all my other folks on ethics who are actually meeting tonight to go over things would know my answer to this. Absolutely. We've been out of compliance with our financial, and let me give a little bit more. The question is a little bit vague, so let me give you a little bit more information. The ethics that they're talking about is that we are non-compliant in the state of Maryland for our financial disclosure as far as the people who serve on council or through commissions, but more likely the people who serve on council. And there's a lot that the state of Maryland requires for public servants to divulge. And council, previous council, I would say not current council, they did not agree to submit that information. So as the Ethics Commission, we had to rewrite by hand for hours our financial disclosure agreement and rewrite it again. And so what stands before us now is still not compliant with the state of Maryland. And I think that, and Mr. Swanson, if you're watching, you'll have to correct me, but I believe that we're only one of a few municipalities in the MML or the state of Maryland who does not comply with this ethics regulation. And so my colleagues on the Ethics Commission, they know how I feel about this. I've been talking about this for many years. I do believe that we need to follow the Maryland form. I think that if you're willing to be a public servant, that you are giving yourself to your community, and therefore you should be someone that people aspire to follow or to aspire to let them lead. And so I think that you should financially disclose the things that the state of Maryland are looking for. I have no problem in doing so. If I am elected, I am happy to work with the revamping of that financial disclosure, and I hope that the rest of the council would too. I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. And Stephen.
All right, well, thank you. So the answer is absolutely. I mean, we should certainly have strong ethics codes and financial disclosure forms, and we should be in total compliance with the state of Maryland. And to me, I've been in federal service for 34 years, and the cornerstone of being a public servant is carrying yourself to a high standard and carrying yourself with integrity and a high level of ethics, because you are a role model for your nation, for your community, for our town in this case. So totally agree. I don't see why it should be that difficult. I mean, I fill out state of Maryland financial disclosure forms, federal government forms, something I will look into to see what's been the issue at hand and how can we, in a very timely manner, get us up to code. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you think council liaisons should have a vote on their commission, and should the rules apply to all the commissions or only the planning commission? And this time we'll start with Heather.
Okay. I do think, do I think that council liaisons should have a vote on commissions? No. Do I think that what happened on the planning commission was right? And no. I think that was an attack on a council member that was unjust, and I don't have a problem with saying that. I do not think that any council member should have any vote on any commission, but to see what happened, and I followed that closely with our planning commission and how we as citizens treated each other through that process, was disheartening, because that's not who we are as a community. And that's when I'm talking about inclusion and diversity and tolerance, and that goes to gender as well. That was an example of what I want to fix in this town, because that was an example of what can be broken in Mount Airy, and we can do better.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you for the question. It's interesting. I think I'd want to learn more about the background of perhaps what's happened in the past that warrants this kind of a question. Overall, I would say I don't think there's a need for council liaisons to have a vote on commissions, because the way the system seems to work is anything that's recommended up through the commissions comes to the town council, and then we get to deliberate on that, and then we get to vote on that. So that would be my position on that. It is interesting, though, we have different types of commissions, and we have the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission is a pretty weighty commission in terms of their mission and purpose for the town. And so I would just want to make sure, if I'm elected to the town council, that the Planning Commission is operating as, I don't want to overstate it, but not as a political body, not as setting policy, but as providing recommendations, providing things for the council to consider. And then it's the council's prerogative to, enact those things or not. So that's my view on the matter.
Thank you. And Lynn?
Thank you. So one of the things I want to, the question was, should the council liaisons have a vote on their commissions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so first of all, what is the definition of a liaison? If we actually look at what a liaison is and what a liaison is supposed to do, the actual definition is a communicator, cooperate, facilitate a close working relationship between people. So my feeling is very strong that the council liaison is the liaison between the commissioner, the commissions, and the town council. You've got the mayor, the town council, the commission, just like in any government agency. The president of the United States doesn't handle all the details in every single one of his agencies. So you've got these commissions for a reason. You need the liaison to be the person that passes that information back to the town council. So should they have a vote? No. You've got that commission for a reason. And there's a reason why, for example, in my Streets and Roads Commission, we have an odd number of members. There's a reason you have an odd number of members when you have a commission and when you're following Robert's Rules of Order with anything that you do, you have that for a reason. So if there's a tie, say someone's absent, then yes, the council liaison could be the tiebreaker. But should they have a vote? No, they're the person to pass that information back on to town council. And then I think there was a part of the question that had to do with our planning commission.
Right. Should that only apply to the planning commission?
Well, the planning commission comes over under their own set of rules because they have the authority to approve development based on code. It's my understanding that the planning commission, and Heather served many years, they come under some state guidelines. So as far as that, you've still got a council liaison though. So you've still got a body, a commission that is put there for a reason to go through these issues, filter them, and send them back up to town council. So I feel like across the board, there shouldn't be a town council vote. They're a liaison.
Thank you. Okay. The Mount Airy 2012 Community Needs Assessment identified a town community center as the most desired and preferred enhancement for the town. However, nothing about a community center was included in the most recent town survey. With no movement on this from the current administration, how do you feel about this, and do you support a center? And I'm sorry, we'll start with Stephen this time.
All right, well, thank you for the question. And yes, serving on the Growth and Development Task Force, I do recall when we were putting together the question set, that potential question came up, and I think the consensus was that had already been thoroughly vetted. It had already been a question that had been asked, and many studies done on it, many, as you say, needs assessments as to why the town never moved forward with a community center, what their rationale was for not pursuing one. That's something I'd have to look into. Maybe that's something that we should think about as part of the visioning plan for downtown. I think maybe we should also consider, what was the stated vision for the community center? How was it to be used? And do we already have those types of facilities within the town of Mount Airy that are perhaps already serving the need that people thought, that would drive the need for a community center? So I'd have to go back and look at the decision-making process and why no movement was done on a community center. Perhaps we've already are addressing the needs for such a center through other types of facilities in the town.
Thank you. Lynn?
Thank you so much for this question, whoever asked it. So I want to go back just a little bit briefly, because having raised 4 children in this town, now my children are ages 19 to 27, I was kind of part of a research, informal fact gathering parents, which is where a lot of things happen at the basic level of parents, to find out if there was a place our children could go, was the need there? And we found out overwhelmingly, yes, the need was there, and the need still is there to have some type of community center for the children in our town. So a couple things have come, a couple things have gone. People have come up with ideas. I think we need to be forward thinking on this. As I have said, I feel very strongly that the youth are the future of our town. And we need to provide a place. And I feel also very strongly that I want this town to be a place where my children come back to raise their children. I see a lot of young adults who grew up with my sons that grew up hanging out up on Hill Street in my house around my neighborhood. and they're choosing to come back to this town because they love this small town, but they still say the same thing. We don't have a community center. We don't have a place for them to go and hang out. It would be great to let them know that they are important enough that we could, as adults, come together, look at this, be forward thinking and say, what can we do to get a community center? We've had a lot of people offer land and different ideas and different things, but people didn't like it or for whatever reason. Let's put that aside and let's do what's best for the youth in this town. If we really want to make this the small town that we want it to be and everybody to come here and our children to come back here to live, we've got to provide facilities for them for a community center. I'm huge on that. So thank you, whoever put that question in.
Thank you. And Heather.
Could you repeat the question, please? I just want to make sure I have all parts of it.
Sure. Well, in the 2012 Community Needs Assessment identified a town community center as the most desired and preferred enhancement for the town. However, nothing about a community center was included in the most recent town survey. So with zero movement on this front from the current administration, how do you feel about it, and do you support a center?
Sure. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, that there's actually a Facebook page that I created that says support a community center in downtown Mount Airy. And so that has been a driving force for me since, I noticed a lack of things for my own children to do and safe places for them to go that were reminiscent of what I had when I grew up here. We had putt and fun when I grew up. We had lots of different places that we could go that were indoors, that we could go and enjoy and be safe, and that were drug-free and alcohol-free and safe for us as children to socialize. And so the community center is, and I talked about with the Flatiron building, that's been a driving force for me for a very, very long time. Of course, I support it. We tried when Shops of Yesteryear closed, which is my family business. We attempted to work with the town to create that into a community center. Town officials walked the building and found that it was not feasible to make that building into a community center, and then it was sold. And I still disagree with that decision. I think that it could have been a wonderful community center. And then even before the fire happened down on South Main Street, and we were talking about the old Chevrolet building and how wonderful that could have been as a community center. And then it caught on fire and we lost that opportunity as well. We have missed so many opportunities for community center, and there are so many municipalities that have a lesser tax base than we do that have such grand community centers, that I think that is disservice to not just the youth. Lynn and I to be very transparent, Lynn and I work together with the youth of Mount Airy. We work on Maya together. We are good friends, but we have missed so many opportunities to have a community center in this town to service youth, but also different types of people that aren't just youth, that it has been unfortunate. So.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob, I apologize. I noticed I had about 10 seconds left and I left out one key important thing about a community center. Councilwoman Reed has formed the junior task force in Mount Airy, and one of their biggest goals is to get a community center. So I don't want to forget our junior task force.
Thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate it. Okay, and this time we'll start with Lynn. The 2006 Mount Airy Athletic Field Assessment of the town identified a shortage of fields and sports facilities. It was recommended that the town would build one on the Harrison Lee Strip property. However, the town was unable to finish the process and annex it. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on the town going forward with some sort of sports complex?
Wow, these are great questions. So I was the former president of MAYA, the Mount Airy Youth Athletic Association, which Heather mentioned. I spent about 20 years volunteering in various capacities. I was actually what is used today to divide up the towns between the two sports organizations, MAYA and Fort County. Worked with Bob King and previous town council bodies to come up with a formula of what was fair to make sure every child in this town had access to their own town fields. So what they used today was an actual mathematical, because I'm a mathematician, accounting type person, formula to show that way we could make equitable use of the fields in this town. And I believe that's what they use now in our wonderful Parks and Rec. So I feel very strongly that we need to have these fields. They need to be available to the children in our town. They need to be accessible to the children in our town over any other outside organization coming in. We have to be diligent. We have to stay with that. And the great volunteers that come in for these organizations have to stay on top of it. There's also a lot of history that goes behind a lot of our fields, and people need to make sure they're informed with whether it's talking to Denny Ahalt and what happened to the Mount Airy Rec Council and why we have the fields we have and who controls what they control. I was also the liaison to Frederick County Parks and Rec on dividing up fields and trying to get more space for the town residents and for town sports. And when that 144 Old National Pike Park came in, there's some great fields there. I think people need to stay on top of it and they need to be diligent. As far as we've had a couple people, we had Frank Iliano offer to put a soccer field way out on one of the roads on some property. So people have come in with ideas. We just have to look at them and say what would work best and how can we make sure, and Heather will agree with me, we keep these kids out on these fields and we give them a place to have something to do. When I brought back our 18 to 21-year-old baseball league, and I had those kids on that Maya baseball field on a Friday night and not out partying with their friends, that's when I realized I'd done my job as a volunteer. So we've got to make sure we've got space for these kids.
Thank you. Heather?
Could you repeat the question, please? I want to make sure that I have all of it.
Sure. It talks about the 2006 Mount Airy Athletic Field Assessment by the town, which identified a shortage of fields and sports facilities. It was recommended that the town would build one on the Harrison Leisure property. However, the town was unable to finish the process and annex that. So do you have any ideas or thoughts on the town going forward with a sports complex?
Absolutely. So I've served on the Recreation and Parks Board now for 2+ years, and anyone who's ever watched a meeting knows that my driving force is playing space for children. And we talk about it every single meeting, and we try to find spaces. So we do have opportunities within town. The problem is that they rely upon cooperation of neighbors. So we actually have opportunities at Windy Ridge. And so the problem is that people live at the access point at Windy Ridge that would increase traffic in their neighborhood. And so for a few homes, that would be an inconvenience for them to service a great many children, to put in a 90-foot field there. We are at a great detriment of 90-foot fields. So I've served on, like I said, I've served on Parks and Rec for quite a few years. And so what we need first is a 90-foot field. And we need about 3 of them to service the children of this community. And that is not an overestimate whatsoever. And so we also have Tim Washaball of Maya has brought back and has combined children from Fort County and Maya to create softball, which speaks to my heart because that's how I got into college. Softball got me into college and through playing with Maya. And the girls are coming back and playing softball. We need fields for them, but we need a hump for them to play on as far as pitching. And that doesn't work with the other fields in town. So we need to find more fields, but also know that Maya, people need to know that Maya pays to have that football field. And Maya pays the fire company to use those fields up there. And not many people, we claim that as our hometown team, but they're paying. And so I do think there are lots of opportunities within town. And I think that we need to really think about the big picture, what's best for kids, and we need to explore those.
Thank you. And Stephen.
All right. Well, thank you for the question. The first thing that hits me is the question is referencing a 2006 needs assessment, and here we are in 2020. So I don't know what that says about how we've been responsive to various assessments. I'm very supportive of sports in Mount Airy. My son is 28 years old now, but he played all the way up through T-ball and Little League and just, I remember, this is a town of memories. We have memories about our families and growing up here. And I remember nice, cool, crisp fall nights where the kids were playing fall ball and the lights came on and it's Americana. So very supportive of sports, very supportive of the need for more fields. I think we need to look at the old assessment. Perhaps we need to do a current assessment and see what the real gap is between what we think we need versus what we have right now. I will say there was a question in the 2020 survey about what types of recreational facilities people wanted. And by and large, people favored additional recreational facilities in the natural environment. They wanted to see more nature trails, hiking trails, biking trails, picnic facilities, parks, etc. There were people who said they wanted to see more ball fields. It was lower down in the priority, but of the people who rated that, they rated it number one about 60% of the time. So the point is, there is a constituency out there who's saying, hey, we still need ball fields. We have young kids, we need a place for them to play, and we need those facilities as well. So that would be my view on the matter.
Thank you. Okay. This question will be for Heather. Do you support gun sales in a residential neighborhood?
So that's an archaic question because that's already been settled with town code. So it's a hot button question that happened in the area of Nottingham. It went through a lot of discussion at council, and council came up with a decision about that already. So I guess my question back to the questioner is, are you bringing it back to council? Because code and council has given the answer, and we're looking about 3 years since this hot button topic happened. And so I'm going to say that's archaic. Let's move forward. Let's stop fighting about things that happened in the past and things that you had differences over with people in council. And the reason why you got them voted out of council, or you're trying to get them voted either on or off council or on or off as the mayor. And let's look forward because we have our answer. And if we want to bring it back to council, I will talk to my neighbors and see how they feel about it. I don't have an opinion on it. Second Amendment rights, I cherish because I cherish all amendment rights, but I love children just as much as I love my rights. So I'm willing to talk about it. But that question, I'm going to say again, that's archaic, and but we can certainly talk about it again.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Well, I'll only use a short amount of my 2 minutes, and the answer is no. I do not support gun sales in a residential neighborhood. It's kind of nonsensical, and to me, it just comes back to what are our values within the town of Mount Airy? We want to treat each other with dignity and respect. We want to live in a safe neighborhood, and so to me, that kind of a residential business would not be appropriate. We have a lot of young families raising young children. It's just not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lynn?
Hi. So I have to agree with both of my colleagues, Heather and Stephen, because first of all, this is such an outdated question. It was a hot topic item in the last election. It caused a lot of divisiveness, as Steve has pointed out. It caused a lot of fighting. And I think that it's not a question we need to answer right now. I will answer it, but I think it has nothing to do with this election. It's something that gets people emotionally charged. And when you're looking at facts and information and you're learning about your candidates, you shouldn't get emotionally charged. So unfortunately, I think that's kind of an out-of-date question that doesn't really have anything to do with this election, but I will answer the question because I am all about children. I've been teaching in Frederick County Public Schools for 18 years. I teach in Montgomery County Public Schools, and I coach in Carroll County Public Schools. So children are very important to me, and I think that we need to mentor and teach and coach them on how to be good citizens in life, and etc. So would I want to be living next door to somebody selling guns out of their house? I don't think I would, because like Steve said, you got to look at the safety issues of that. And I agree with Heather, everyone has their constitutional rights, and I'm not going to get into the Constitution and whether we have the right to bear arms because it's a basic right within the Constitution. The question is it the right place to have the business of what you're doing? So as far as do I think someone in my neighborhood should be doing that? No, if it's not, it's also violates zoning and code. So I think I'm not sure where that question came on. It's kind of out of the blue, but it's a previous election question. And I can see why somebody would ask it because it is a hot ticket item that really got people worked up in the last election. It's not relevant to this election. We've moved beyond that. And we do need to, like one of my colleagues said, come together as a town. We need to work together as a town, not be divisive. We need to all work together and coming up with solutions to things. So I'm gonna leave that question right there for you guys.
Thank you. All right, and we'll start with Stephen on this one. What do you think the mayor's role is with town staff? Is the town manager more the day-to-day manager? And if not, why not?
Well, thank you for the question, and I'm gonna frame this, give you a frame of reference. So there's something called organizational culture, and there are some traits of a healthy organization. Healthy organizations are characterized by having a clear set of values that are expressed from the top of the organization down. They're characterized by having a questioning attitude, learning from best practices, treating people with dignity and respect. And so that's kind of a frame of reference. So if I'm elected to town council, I'm going to go in with a questioning attitude, and I'm going to better understand, how is our town governed?
Oh, no.
And perhaps maybe he's being underutilized. I don't know. I think the mayor should serve as the executive, and then the day-to-day operations of the organization, of the town staff, they are managed by the town administrator. So that would be kind of the way that I would look at it.
Stephen, I apologize. I think you froze for about 10 seconds in there on that question, about the middle of it. So I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to use your 25 seconds to go back and recap.
Well, again, my point is, I think we need to take a fresh look at how the town is managed, the town staff. I agree that the town administrator should manage the day-to-day operations of the town staff. The mayor serves as the executive role. He does the ceremonial duties. He is the executive, but the day-to-day operations is run by the town administrator. And it's the town administrator's job, and perhaps the town staff, perhaps they need to have maybe a mini retreat and just go through, have a session about how are we managed? How do we manage better? How do we become a more efficient organization? It's the town administrator's job to run the daily operations of the organization.
Thank you. And Lynn, you're next.
Would you repeat the question? I apologize.
Sure, no problem. What do you think the mayor's role is with town staff? Is the town manager more the day-to-day? Is the town manager more the day-to-day manager? And if not, why not?
And did you say as the town manager or more of a day-to-day manager?
The question is the town manager more the day-to-day manager?
You're talking about the town administrator?
Yes.
So the question is twofold. It's the role of the mayor and the role of the town administrator.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, got you. Okay, so first of all, let me attack the mayor's role. So, and then I'll attack some of the points that Steve brought up, because when you manage and you have an organization, I agree. Let me go to that first. I agree that it's a trickle-down effect. When you're in management, and to be an effective manager, you have to have effective management techniques. You have to have a lot of what he said. You have to respect your workers, your co-workers. You have to have standard operating procedures. What are the standard operating procedures? I'm looking forward to finding out what that is if I get elected town council. I'd like to know who does what are their roles, who manages what's the paper trail? I'm big on paper trails based on my experience. So the mayor's role is like the CEO, CFO of the organization. It's like I said before, the president of the United States is the figurehead. He does not get involved with, my husband works for the government. He does not get involved with what my husband does in his day-to-day job. It's just impossible. That's why you have an organization levels in the organization. So the mayor is exactly what Steve said. He's the figurehead. He's the ceremonial one. He is, kind of the overseer of everything that happens in town hall, because at the end of the day, people are going to blame the mayor. I have people ask me all the time for his phone number, and I tell them I don't have it. Call town hall. There's people that handle different things in town hall. So as far as his role, that's what he should do. And whatever his job laid out, he's up there. And you asked about the manager, which I think is our town administrator. That person is the person that should be the quote unquote office manager of our office. The town administrator should be overseeing the daily operations. I had a lot of conversations with our previous town administrator on what her role was and what her job was. And they are the person that does the day-to-day management and operations of the town. Questions? Is everything running efficiently? Are our town employees happy? That's a good point Steve had, that somebody needs to look at that and say, what are the roles? Are the roles clear? Does everybody know what they're supposed to be doing? And what can we do to make sure we can, most importantly, retain these wonderful town employees that we have?
Thank you. And Heather.
Could you repeat the question for me, just to make sure that I get everything?
Sure. What do you think the mayor's role is with town staff? And is the town administrator more the day-to-day manager? And if not, why not?
Well, I'm an 80s girl, so I'm going to go with what we learned about when we learned about conjunction junction and all that things about Saturday morning special for politics, is that, the mayor is our executive branch, right? And then there's the legislative branch. And so the town administrator, I was blessed enough to know when we had our first town administrator, who was Monica, and the evolution of that role. So there needs to be separation between the executive and legislative branches. And so as far as there's been changes in code, I don't know if that my other candidates are aware of. So it used to be that the town council president set the agenda for town council meetings. And so we had that changed. So now the mayor does that. And, I talked to Mayor Pat a lot about that because I didn't understand the reasoning behind that. And when he talked to me about it, it made sense because he has a lot of dealings with the town administrator about things that need to be on the agenda. And so I think that the town administrator is the liaison between all three branches of government within a municipality. And I think that there's an opportunity there to set agendas that are meaningful, not only for the executive branch, but also the legislative. But I do think that they need to be collaborated upon prior to council meetings. I think that's really important. And I don't know if that happens right now or not.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we've had 10 good questions tonight. It's been a great forum. You all have done a wonderful job. Your candor's been exceptional, and you've stuck to the 2 minutes. So I really appreciate all of that. And I thought we could just wrap it up now and head toward a closing statement from everybody. So everybody's going to have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And I guess it would be Lynne's turn to start first, if that's okay. So if we could start with Lynne for a final statement. Thank you.
Sure. First, I want to say thank you again to everybody at Carroll Media and to you for moderating tonight and taking the time to come this important thing that we're doing tonight. And I want to thank you for the citizens out there taking the time to listen to the candidates tonight. I would like to be your voice on the town council. As a longtime resident of Mount Airy, I care about what happens to our town. This is your town. We want our town to remain one of the top 10 safest towns in Maryland to live in. We all want to maintain and preserve our quality of life that we have living in our wonderful small town. I am confident that I have the qualities and experience needed to work successfully as a team on town council, because that's so very important that our town council work together and everybody work together as a cohesive unit. There's a lot of issues facing our town in the short and long term. What we do now will affect our town in 5, 10, 15, even 20 years from now. We need to be responsible, transparent, and opening to listening to you, the residents, and also just as important, the young adults in our town. They are the future of our town. We need to give them a voice on town council, and we as residents need to make sure we are heard on town council. So I hope you will vote for me, Lynne Galetti, on May 3rd. And if you would like more information, please feel free to reach out to me. They will have all the contact information you need. Thank you so very much to everybody and my fellow candidates.
Thank you, Lynne. Heather, you're up next.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to leave. I'm going to pull off some notes here, which isn't usually my style, but I just want to make sure that I hit everything. You know, I have 3 goals in running for town council, and those are to leave people in places better than you found them. That's something that my father said to me all the time, and he led this town for 36 years, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for different reasons, not just because I'm Delaney Hobbs's daughter. To lead through the tenets of shared leadership and involve stakeholders in decision-making, and to create a community that our children will want to return to raise their own children. That's my big drive. You know, children are my game. That's, that's my big investment here. I'm a local educator, 21 years served on Frederick County Public Schools. 16 years of those have been as an elementary school principal. I am classically trained in the tenets of leadership, active listening, as well as inclusion and the realization of poverty within socioeconomic diverse neighborhoods, which we all need to pay attention to, even in Mount Airy. I'm an active volunteer with youth sports, including MAYA and Special Olympics Maryland. I'm a panelist for the American Institute of Architecture for the Committee on Education. I'm a 2020 nominee for the Maryland Distinguished Principal of the Year. And I'm also a 2020, very proudly, along with my good friend Lynn, a Mount Airy Year of the Woman recognee, which I couldn't be more proud about that one. I'm a former appointee to the Mount Airy Recycling and Sanitation Commission. I am also a former member of our Mount Airy Rotary Club, along with those founding fathers of the Rotary Club that founded that club. I'm so proud of that. I'm a current appointee on the Mount Airy Ethics Commission for the past several years, and a current appointee on the Mount Airy Recreation and Parks Commission. I love this town. That's all I have. I don't have numbers or statistics. I love Mount Airy.
Thank you. And finally, Stephen.
All right, well, thank you. I want to thank everybody for your time this evening. I have a few final thoughts. First, in my 34 years of public service, there are 2 core values that kind of drive me above all the others. And those 2 are leading with integrity and caring about the people that I serve. And so I will bring those core values to you, and I will bring those to the town council for the benefit of the town. I know that many of you are frustrated with the lack of forward progress on many of the town's longstanding issues, and I share your frustrations, and I commit to you that I will take the actions and deliver the results that you've been asking for. If you want to learn more about me and my management and leadership philosophy, if you want to send me questions or get more information, please go to my website. It is stevefortowncouncil.com. That's Steve with the number 4, towncouncil.com. That's my primary way of communicating with you and learning more about you and your needs. I think the next few years are going to be a very exciting time for the town. There's going to be a lot of big decisions that we're going to have to make. We didn't talk much about it tonight, but the town is getting this, $13-15 million in COVID relief money. And there's going to be big opportunities there to address infrastructure needs. And we can leverage that to help revitalize the downtown. So I think with my analytical skills and my holistic approach to decision-making, that I'm going to serve the town well. But I really need your help. I'm ready to go. So please vote for me on May 3rd. I'll give you everything I got, and I will always do my best. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all 3 of you. So during tonight's forum, we experienced a few technical difficulties. We're relying upon Zoom to see and hear the candidates, and it's not always perfect. So we do apologize for any interruptions or loss of signal. At any rate, thank you very much to all the candidates, and I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa Bethune.
Thanks, Bob. We would like to thank all of the candidates who were with us this evening, as well as our moderator, Mr. Bob Blubaugh from the Carroll County Times. And special thanks to everyone who submitted questions for tonight's forum. This forum has been recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing on our website at carrollmediacenter.org and on YouTube. It will also be rebroadcast on cable channel HD 1086 and channel 19. The first rebroadcast will be on cable channel HD 1086 on Wednesday, March 31st, and Thursday, April 1st at 8 p.m., and on Saturday, April 3rd at 12 noon. The forum will continue to air on channels HD 1086 and channel 19 until May 3rd. Before we go, I'd like to encourage everyone to learn about the candidates running in the 2020 municipal elections by visiting the CMC's online voters guide at carrollmediacenter.org. Thank you all for joining us, and good night.